KUOW podcasts are made possible by listener support. Become a new or renewing member today at KUOW.org.
From KUOW Seattle, this is Weekday. I'm Guy Nelson. When you watch people do the Lindy Hop, you want to be out there on the dance floor. It looks like so much fun. It's a style of swing dancing that was created along with the big band music of the 20s, 30s, and 40s. It's been revived in Seattle and other cities and has a big following here, especially this weekend. There's a Masters of the Lindy Hop celebration with dancing, workshops, and panel discussions going on around the city. 3 people who are part of that program and who are big names in Lindy Hop are with me this hour. They are Dawn Hampton, Leonard Westerland, and Jenny Lagan, and they're here right now. Good morning, everyone. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Rather than me give a lengthy introduction about each of you, I thought I would just let you each talk about briefly what your own history of dancing and performing in Lindy Hop is. So, Jenny, let's start with you.
Okay.
Go ahead and tell me something about your history.
Well, I started dancing when I was a youngster, and I was fortunate that when I was about 15 or 16, I guess it must have been, I had an opportunity to audition for Count Basie, whose band had been discovered and was on its way to New York, and they were going to put a line of girls in, and I was advised to go and auditioned as to be a chorus girl, and I had been taught by a lady who had worked with the beautiful and wonderful lady Josephine Baker, and she used to steal the show because she used to dance in the chorus, but then she would go down and mug and work by herself out of her line. She was on the second line in the chorus line on the left-hand side, and so this lady had taught me all of her tricks. And unfortunately, or I should say not really unfortunately, but fortunately, I had learned them so well that one day when we were having lunch at the rehearsal for the show that was to go on in Chicago, they played some music, and the music just got to me that day. And I jumped up and started doing the stuff that Joe had been doing. That I had been taught, that Joe was doing. And I didn't realize that Mr. Hammond and Count Basie were in the room. And so when some number finished and the kids screamed and yelled and carried on, they came and said, "Now you do that in a show." And I understand that when we did our show at the theater there in Chicago, which was called it was an Uptown Theater on the south side near the Wrigley ball field, that the Balaban and Katz were the owners of the theater. They gave you 1 week's work, and Count Basie broke it because of the fact that I did that thing. So I didn't realize it and didn't even know about it until many years later that I was advised that is what had happened. And they were the only company that had ever done 2 weeks at the theaters that Balaban and Katz had raised. And from there on, I had other chances, and I had an incident with a young lady that I met at another time, and she was an orphan, and she had been in one of the, how they take kids and take you, some family will be their parents for a while, and this girl had been roughed up by the people in her house, and she was crying. And after this audition that we had gone to, and I had been accepted for a job, and she was crying. She said she couldn't go home because she was afraid the man was chasing her and the lady was beating her and all that. And so I said, well, come and go with me. So I brought her home to my mom and told her what all these things had happened, and so she became my foster sister. She and I made an act together. We worked in Detroit and all in Chicago and had a chance to go to California. And then from there is how I got there, and things happened, and I auditioned for Bill, and I was chosen to dance with Bill Robinson in Hooray for Love, and that's how I got started in the camp.
That's the famous Bojangles,
yes,
Bill
sir.
Robinson?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Bill
Great.
Bojangles Robinson. I have a shirt with his name on it. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's Jenny Lagan. Let's go around the table. Dawn Hampton, how about if you're next? You tell us something about your past.
Well, I'm one of 12 children. I was born and raised on a carnival. At 3 years old, my dad put you out on stage and said, do something. We formed a band. the band. We played at the Apollo, we played the Savoy, we played Carnegie Hall. I used to play alto saxophone. I've been dancing all my life. I love to dance.
Same here.
I was just telling people there's such a spiritual thing about dance. And even when you talk about the Lindy Hop, one of the things that most people are not aware of is the spiritual thing that happens to you when you're dancing. You don't have to take drugs. You don't have to drink. You don't have to you get high off a dance. And that's what Lindy Hop is. It's a high. Mm-hmm. You're just reaching out into the atmosphere for this energy that happens to you. Most people are into sports, but sports is a physical thing. To me, dance is a spiritual thing. And there are churches that don't like dance. There are families that don't want their kids to dance. But I think that is so wrong. Because if you read your Bible, when the higher power moved the Ark of the Covenant, he had dancers in front of it. I did not say they were swing dancing or Lindy hopping or jitterbugging, but they were dancing. There is something very, very, very uplifting about dancing. I think people would have less stress, we would have less war, we'd have less hate if we had more dancing. I advise everybody, especially the senior citizens who have to take drugs in order to relax, dance.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we'll come back to some of those
I agree there.
interesting ideas.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, Leonard Westerlund, your story is a little different. So you're from Sweden, right? Well, tell us how what your history with dance is.
Yeah, so it is a little bit different. As you said, I'm from Sweden. And, when I came into the dance in the early 80s, Lindy Hop and those kind of dances were not really in circulation anymore. So I guess I was one of those persons that met the dance through books and films, because I didn't know about the dance. But I had a friend. He spent a lot of time at the library, and one day he came over and said, I think I found an interesting book, and it was about the Lindy Hop. So from that day we started to collect movies, and we technically learned from the movies, sitting watching old movies, trying to copy, imitate, and so on, so on. And at that time we were very, very few people. Also here in America there were very few people at the time doing the Lindy. So we were some people in Sweden, some people in London, some people in the Los Angeles, New York areas that kind of came into the Lindy around the same time. And I think we all felt like pioneers a little bit at the time, trying to bring something back to life again. And from there on I moved on with the dance, trying to learn a little bit tap, a little bit of this and that. So that is my background in short words.
Mm-hmm. And you formed a dance group, the Rhythm Hot Shots, which has toured all over and performed.
Yes, that's what happened later on. So in 85, when we had been practicing maybe for 4 or 5 years on a serious level, we practiced every day. Then we were able to form this group, and we had a little bit of success with it because we were trying to dance the way people had done in the 20s, 30s and 40s, which was not so common at the time. So some people liked it, and we had the opportunity, as you said, to travel around the world a little bit with the group. And the group is still around with another name, Harlem Hot Shots. But so the group is there. I'm still in it, but the rest of the group is more young people today.
Mm-hmm. Well, now I would like the three of you to explain and describe what the Lindy Hop is, because a lot of people maybe listening have never seen it and maybe don't know how it fits into other dance styles, the different types of swing dancing. So let's see if we can paint a good picture.
Well, I would think that that the foxtrot is one of the dances that used to be very, very popular. Was how would you say it was the beginning of it? Because actually, you danced away. Some of the steps are similar, but not exactly the same. But I think that the foxtrot was the reason where because they got so much fun out of doing it, then they just exaggerated and did steps and made up steps accordingly. But I would say that it was born on the back of the foxtrot, that kind of music, and. But as Don was saying, it was so much fun when we were learning it and who was doing it, and then you learned to put kicks in it and a whole bunch of stuff that you could do. And I've seen wonderful years ago. I've seen some wonderful Lindy Hoppers, right? Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah.
Dawn, how would you describe it to someone who's never seen it?
Oh, I think what she's saying is what she's saying is absolutely right, but I think it's the music that made it swing dancing. We went with the foxtrot because when my people came to the United States, they were not dancing together. And we began to imitate our masters, and that's where we began to do the foxtrot and stuff like that. But it was the music that made us change what we were doing, that made us feel something different. And that's when it turned into, because Lindy Hop has a lot of names. See, when I came up, they weren't calling it the Lindy Hop. They weren't even calling it swing. The music was called swing.
Yeah.
But the dance was not called swing. I just learned about swing dancing 15, 20 years ago. And we didn't have names for things, and we have names for it now.
Where did the name Lindy Hop come from?
Well, what was the gentleman's name at Savoy? The newspapers come in to see the dancers, and they asked, was it Shorty?
Yeah. Shorty Snowden.
Shorty Snowden. They said, what do you call this dance? And he looked at the newspaper, and Lindbergh had just hopped the Atlantic. So he said, it's the Lindy Hop.
Okay. So this was like in 1927 maybe, or somewhere back in there.
Somewhere around there.
Okay. Well, Leonard, how would you describe it? What does it look like?
First of all, I think it's very difficult to describe a dance over the radio, but to me it has something to do with what Dawn said. She said swing, and to me that is a very abstract thing, what swing is, but I guess the musicians, they are trying to present it with sounds, and as a dancer you try to present that abstract feeling of swing with dancing, with pictures in a way. So that's one way to look upon it. Then it's also, it's a very social dance. It was the big dance in the 30s in America and later on in Europe also. And it was danced by a lot of different kind of people, but people that were very much into it, they created it with a lot of air steps and very fast dancing and took it on stages and so on. So I would say it's a dance with a lot of different dimensions.
By air steps, you mean what?
Yeah, aerials. You jump around,
flipping.
you throw each other around, and all the acrobatic dancing, which was a big part of the Lindy Hop when it came on stage. But socially, it was a social dance. Anyone could do it.
To the guy's legs, remember?
Oh, yeah.
Throw you up and turn, you get down and
I remember.
walk to them.
All right. We'll continue on with more fascinating stories about the origins of the Lindy Hop and what it has evolved to and what it's like now. And we'll take your phone calls and your emails as well. 543-5869, 1-800-289-KUOW. This is Weekday. I'm Guy Nelson.
19 minutes past 9 o'clock, KUOW 94.9 News and Information. Learn the story behind the Pickle Plan this afternoon at 2.
Every Saturday night, the Swing Years and Beyond takes you on a tour of popular music from the 1920s through the 1950s. I'm Amanda Wild. Join me for the Swing Years and Beyond, Saturday nights starting at 7 o'clock on 94.9 KUOW.
Support for KUOW comes from Valley Medical Center, where the Joint Center is dedicated to improving the lives of individuals with arthritis, joint injuries, or other degenerative joint diseases through surgery and rehab, regardless of age. More information at valleymed.org.
66 degrees, sunny skies in Seattle. It's going to be sunny and hot today. We're looking at a high this afternoon of 88 degrees. I'm Bernard Willett. It's 9:20.
This is KUOW Seattle Weekday. I'm Guy Nelson. We're talking about the Lindy Hop. It's a very, very fun, enthusiastic dance. It's a type of swing dance. And the reason it's big in Seattle this weekend is because there's a program called Masters of the Lindy Hop. It's based out of the Century Ballroom this weekend. And a lot of activities going on. There are dance workshops, there are performance, there are panel discussions. 3 of the people who are involved in that are here with me this morning, Dawn Hampton, Jenny Ligon, and Leonard Westerland. And they're talking about their experiences over many, many decades, dancing this dance, seeing it revived in recent years, and now teaching it to whole new generations of people. You can join the conversation with your comments and questions and dance experiences at 543-5869 or 1-800-289-5869. You can also email us at weekday@kuow.org. Well, the music in those days was remarkable. It was the days of the big band era, in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. And so I want to first ask each of you what you remember about that. Who were the musicians and the bands that really were innovative and gave you the best memories? Dawn Hampton, why don't you go first?
My favorite band was the Count Basie band because Count liked to play for dancers. There were so many bands in Fletcher Henderson and them that they will tell you what they got from the dancers made them play even better. It gave them something else to work with. See, I was in a band, so I didn't get to work with as many different bands because of my family band. But my father raised us to be entertainers. So as an entertainer, we danced, we sang, we played, we did everything. So we didn't get to work with that many bands. But we did have a very special thing going on, and we were the only band at the time, which was in 1950-51, that played twice at the Apollo in 1 month. And we played Carnegie Hall opposite that other Hampton that I won't mention, and then we went and played the Apollo. Then we played at Savoy. Then we went back and played the Apollo, and then we played at Savoy again. We were the house band there for a minute. The people needed. Dance was a thing. People worked all week long, even in the South where people picked cotton all week and stuff like that. They needed the music. They needed the dance. And nowadays, people really need it. They're not, well, I think the young people are more aware of it. But last night at Century Ballroom, there were a lot of people dancing that were not young people, but they used to do it. So they're back to doing it again. Mm-hmm. It's a very... Like I said, it's a very spiritual thing that's happening with dance.
Yeah, now back in those days, was it a multi-generational experience on the dance floor? Did you see young people and old people, or was it more just a certain age group?
Well, the thing is, I think that most of the people that we associated with were fellas like in the service. The service was big with the dance. They took the dance to Europe. That's where, and then what they learned over there, they brought back, and they mixed it with what we were doing. And that's reason it's a very creative dance. I always say that if a lot of kids would go back and look at what their parents were doing, they will find out some of the steps we're doing right now, their parents were doing years ago. But again, I have to lay it on the music. It's the music that makes me dance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jenny Lagan, what do you remember of the music?
Well, I think that most of the bands that during my time, because I had a chance to work with, was Cab Calloway in the future, which was a big band, and as Don mentioned, Fletcher Henderson, and of course I mentioned Count Basie, and oh golly, there were so many wonderful young bands during that period. I'm getting too old to remember all of these things, but there were just gobs of grand bands, and they had. I worked Apollo. I worked with Fats Waller, and I worked with him. We played the Apollo 2 times. We played the Regal in Chicago, and we went down to Washington, D.C. and played that wonderful theater there that's still there in honor of all of the things that happened in the past. And there's a new thing out called Hollywood's... oh, dear, I can't remember. I won't mention it. But there's something out about that company in Washington, D.C., about them saving this wonderful old theater where you dance there. So I can't remember it all, but I do just want to say one thing. I am now Dr. Jenny Lagan. I was given the honor by the Oklahoma City University in 2004.
Well, congratulations. That's fantastic. Well, Leonard, I want to ask you about your impressions of the music, too, but let's first go to a special phone guest that we have, and he just joined us, and it's Frankie Manning. He's on the line. Frankie, are you there?
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
Frankie, are you in New York City?
Yes, I'm in New York City.
All right, that's your home.
In Seattle, Washington.
Well, we're very thrilled and honored to to have you here. Can you hear Dawn? Turn up your headphones there, Dawn, so you can hear Frankie on the phone.
The red thing?
Yeah, it's the knob on the bottom down there. Leonard, maybe.
Yeah, well, I just heard Dawn and I heard Jenny.
Yeah, we can hear you. Now, we understand you're recuperating from hip surgery.
Yeah, you were hurt. How you doing, Guy?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good out here now.
Oh, wonderful.
For our listeners, Frankie Manning is considered like the king, probably.
Oh, yes, definitely.
The living king of the Lindy Hop,
Yes,
and
sir.
he helped really originate it and create it back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. And Frankie is largely credited with creating the first air step, the aerial, I guess, where flipping his partner up and doing somersaults.
It's a high kick.
So Frankie, for years and years, has traveled and taught and danced this Lindy Hop, and so for anyone who's been part of that scene, he's definitely at the very top of the pile. So we're really happy to have you with us today, Frankie, and glad that you're doing all right.
Well, I'm kind of happy that I'm able to do this, and as you said, you're happy to have me. And my saying is always that at this stage of the game, I'm happy to be anywhere.
Now, you've taught so many people this dance, Frankie. What is it that you tell people who want to learn the Lindy Hop? What is the thrill in it for you?
Well, a Lindy hopping is a partner dance, and I have gotten so many cards and letters from couples who say, well, I just started dancing last year, and I met this fella, and now we're going to get married. so I mean, this is a dance that brings people together.
Amen.
Yeah,
because
many times
people would dance, and one person would be over in one corner and one in the other corner, but they're supposed to be dancing together. But now you have the opportunity to dance and speak to the person that you're dancing with, and I always say it's a three-way love affair. It's a triangle, because you fall in love with the music, you fall in love with the one you're dancing with, and you are in rhythm with each other. So that's a very wonderful thing to be.
It sure sounds like it. Yeah, well, Frankie, of all the great bands that you danced with over the years, which one was your favorite?
Bands?
Yeah, the bands.
You got to be kidding. There's only one swinging band out there, but that was out there, baby, and that was Mr. Count Basie.
What was it about the Basie band, Frankie, that worked so well?
Well, what about it was that Basie, band had so much rhythm to it.
Yeah.
That when that band starts playing, your feet gonna start patting, your fingers will start popping, and your head is gonna start to bob. And if you don't do that,
your body woke up.
Because when that band started, it gives you the feel that you want to do something, that you want to dance to it. And that was always Basie's thing. He said, well, I don't care how fast I play or how slow I play. I want the people to dance.
You too.
He loved dancers. He loved dancers.
Well, Frankie, your story is very interesting because you danced for many years, and then the big band era ended in the 50s, and so you just went back to a normal life. Did you work for the post office? Is that what it was?
Yes, I did.
And then
I worked in the post office for 30 years, and but I didn't stop dancing just because I was working in the post office. I mean, we used to have there was so many people that work in there, so there was different people who would get together, and they would have they would form a club, and the club would give dances, and each club would go to the other club's dance. So it was always dancing. Of course, we were doing the dance of the day, like the twist and the fishtail and the swim and all those dances, which only lasted for about a week.
Well, you were rediscovered basically in the 80s by people who had seen archival footage of the Lindy Hop, and then you were brought back into the public to start teaching these moves. So what was that like for you to remember everything that you had done?
It was like coming back home, it's like I had been away and and I'm just coming back home, man, and it feels so good to be home. And this was like 1986, 1987, and Aaron Stephen and Stephen Mitchell, you know, they asked me if I would teach them, and I started to teach them, and then from then I started teaching other people, and boy, I was back home again, and not in Indiana.
All right. Well, Frank, we'll let you go, but just for a last question, do you have any advice here for people who are participating in this weekend of dancing in Seattle and who really want to learn the dance and understand its history?
Well, I mean, the only thing I have heard is just get out there and dance and have fun, because that's what the dance is all about, is having fun. And you just get out there and dance, dance, dance.
Well said. Well, Frankie Manning, thank you very much for talking to us today.
Well,
I agrees with you.
We're glad you're doing well. You take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's Frankie Manning on the phone with us from New York City, his home, and he still travels a lot, doesn't he?
Yes, I know.
Yeah, and he probably would love to be here if he hadn't had the hip surgery.
He was here last year.
Yeah. Yes.
And he's in his 90s. I know that. I don't know exactly how old he is.
He's 94 because she's 93 today.
Oh, Jenny, you're 93 today? Is it your birthday?
Yes.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
I would have guessed 30-something. I don't know.
Get out of here.
Okay. All right. Well, that was fun. I'm glad Frankie's doing well.
Oh,
Leonard, let's go back to talk a little bit more about the music and some of the bands that you think work in particular for this type of dance.
Oh, it's of course very different for me, because when I was a teenager, when I grew up in Sweden, I mean, we didn't listen to big band music because this is in the 70s. So I don't think I had an interest in music in general before a friend of mine, he came over to me and he gave me a record, and it was with a big band of the 30s called Jimmy Lunceford.
Oh, yes.
And I listened to it and I was fascinated by the music from the very beginning. And at the same time, I had started to do some Lindy dancing in Sweden. So then I understood that this is the kind of music that they danced Lindy to at the time. So my first love affair when it comes to big band music, that was Jimmy Lunceford Orchestra.
Oh, gosh, yeah. That was a heck of a choice. One of the best, very best. I work with him, too, yeah. Oh, dear.
Well, let me ask
Bringing
one
back
question,
the
too,
past.
about the jitterbug. Now, some people say is it the same dance? Is it a different dance? What's the difference between Lindy and jitterbug?
I think it's different where you are in the world when you ask that question, because in some places it means exactly the same thing, but in some places there might be a slight difference between the Lindy Hop and the jitterbug. In Sweden, for instance, if I would say jitterbug, people would think about 6-count dancing. But if they say Lindy Hop, they would think about 8-count dancing. So it's a little bit of a difference over where I come from.
Mm-hmm. What about in your experiences for Dawn and Jenny?
Gee, I don't know. I had never even thought about separating them in a sense. That they were just, one was called jitterbug and the other one was called the Lindy Hop. And I guess because you could jitterbug by yourself, I guess that was the difference. But because you always dance with a partner for the Lindy, because you had to do all these wonderful swing outs and turns and all that sort of business. But I think they were just two different dances, but they were in that particular kind of time and you do it, and single people were doing dancing, jitterbugging, like for instance with the band, and especially with Lunceford's band and those bands like that, they always carried either a singer or a dancer in the band, and they would do either one or the other, or maybe could do both in their show that they would perform. The one would come out and he'd sing probably, and he was a jitterbugger, and he was also a Lindy Hopper, and his partner would join him. So that was the kind of thing that went on really in those days. It was tremendous.
Well, we have a caller on the line, 543-5869, 1-800-289-5869. This is Grace from Linwood. Grace, are you 12 years old?
Yes.
Well, thanks for calling. Thanks for calling this morning. What would you like to say or ask our guests?
I would just like to thank them for bringing the Lindy Hop alive again.
Are you a dancer, Grace?
Yes, I do the Lindy Hop.
Wow, that's great. Where did you learn it?
I learned it here in Washington through Left Foot Boogie.
Where?
Well, is that a dance club or something?
Yeah, it's a dance company.
And how long have you been studying?
I've learned it. I've been studying it for 2 months.
God bless her. God bless
Her just a beginner.
her. God bless her. That's great.
Well, Grace, what made
Keep
you...
it up, girl.
Yeah,
Keep it up.
what made you decide to want to learn this particular dance of all the dances that are out there? Why the Lindy Hop?
I see people doing it, and I just thought it looked so fun.
Hooray for you.
Amen.
But I think it's also interesting because this shows what the Lindy is today. It's kind of all ages, and it's today, I mean, it exists in maybe 50 countries around the world today.
Yeah.
So this is a very good example of it. Can be very
Take it
young
on
people.
again.
And then we have Frankie on the other side, who's 94. So
Yeah, that's a very wide range. Well, do you have any words of encouragement for Grace? Anybody?
Well, the whole,
Keep it up, girl.
That's
Keep it
right.
up.
Just keep
Keep it up.
dancing.
Dance away.
dancing.
If you love it like we loved it, then
Right.
you're one of us. So
That's
keep it up.
Right. We hope you can come this weekend so we can meet you.
Yes. Call and tell us that
Yeah.
you're going to come and visit
Yeah,
us.
come and visit us at the Century
Here
Ballroom.
at the Century Ballroom here in Seattle.
Grace, thanks a lot for the phone call.
Oh, beautiful.
It's great to hear from you. 543-5869 or 1-800-289-KUOW if you'd like to join our conversation about swing dancing then and now. We have people who have lived this dance ever since its early days back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. They are Jenny Lagan and also Dawn Hampton are with me here, and Leonard Westerlund is here. His history is a little different. He's from Sweden, but he saw this dance and fell in love with it and has danced all over the world. And all of these three are teaching classes, and they're on panel discussions and workshops. So it's a great chance to not only experience this dance, but also find out more about the history of it. We'll come back in a few minutes and continue this conversation. You can also email us at weekday@kuow.org or give us a call, 289-5869. That's 1-800-289-5869 or 543-5869. This is Weekday on KUOW. I'm Guy Nelson in for Steve Scher.
It's 9:39. KUOW 94.9 News and Information.
Support for KUOW comes from the pre-Broadway production of Shrek the Musical, based on the story and characters from William Steig's book Shrek, and from the DreamWorks animation film Shrek, at the Fifth Avenue Theater August 14th through September 21st. Tickets at fifthavenue.org.
This week on A Prairie Home Companion, it's a radio show about radio with Studs Terkel, Bob Edwards, Meryl Streep. And I'll tell you about how I got started in radio at the University of Minnesota. The Powder Milk Biscuit Band is with us as well from the old days. Join us this week on A Prairie Home Companion.
Garrison Keeler with the Prairie Home Companion, Saturday afternoon at 3. Lavender and wine grapes are both being grown quite successfully on the Olympic Peninsula. Learn how the lavender and wine are now being brought together in a new way this afternoon at 2:50.
Support for KUOW comes from the law firm of Dorsey & Whitney. From Seattle to New York, Shanghai to London, companies and organizations rely on Dorsey for strategic legal advice. On the web at dorsey.com.
68 degrees, sunny skies in Seattle. We expect a high of 88 this afternoon and clear sunny skies all day. I'm Bernard Willett. It's 9:40.
This is Weekday on KUOW Seattle. I'm Guy Nelson in for Steve Scher. Anybody recognize that music that was just on there?
No, I was just asking. I never heard that tune. Do you know that tune?
But the last
tune that
piece
they
was
just-
Ellington, wasn't it?
Was it Ellington?
I think the very
one?
last
Before,
piece.
before,
Yeah, before I recognized it, but I don't know the name
Which
of the song.
tune?
It's a good one.
It's being played?
there was
Yeah,
a
the one-
little bit of music during the break there.
I didn't
just
hear
wondered
it.
if anybody
I
heard it.
didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't listening, no.
Well, I'm posing that question to three swing dance experts. They didn't really hear the music, but my guests are Dawn Hampton, Jenny Ligon, and Leonard Westerland, and we're talking about the Lindy Hop this hour. The Lindy Hop is a form of swing dance, and there are many variations of swing dance. The Lindy Hop is would you say it's maybe the most complicated, or it has a lot of improvisation in it? Where does it
I think
rank?
that's reason it's not complicated. It's more creative.
Mm-hmm.
It lets you create
What you want to
yeah.
do.
You
Yeah.
learn the basic step, and then you just go for it.
And then you go for it. Okay. Well, it's part of Masters of the Lindy Hop program that's going on in Seattle this weekend, and that involves a lot of dancing, a lot of workshops and classes and panel discussions. And these three people are going to be involved in all of that by doing some teaching and talking. And you can participate. But this hour, we're talking about the dance itself and where it came from, how it's evolved, and where it is these days after all those years. Jenny and Dawn grew up, spent their whole lives dancing with some of the greatest jazz musicians in the history of the art. And Leonard Westerland is from Sweden. He heard the music and saw the dancing later in life and fell in love with it and started his own dance company. And since we're talking about that, Leonard, explain how the dance became so popular overseas, and especially in Europe, but in other countries too. What have you seen outside of America with the Lindy Hop?
Yeah, I mean, today it is a very international dance, first of all. And as I said before, it's about 50 countries where you can find the dance today. And I think this goes back to the early 80s, because in the 60s and 70s, we didn't see much of the Lindy Hop, from what I understand. But in the early 80s, there were enthusiastic people in different places of the world. And the first countries that brought the dance back was America itself, of course, and then Sweden and England. And once the dance was danced again, then people saw it, and maybe one person felt, I want to do this, and he lived in another city and he started a little scene. Some people saw it over there, and then you had a new place, a new city, a new country, and from there it has developed. But I mean, the big change came in the mid-90s or something like that, because that's when the dance really started to spread. So it took like 10-15 years, and it was in a small scale. And then, especially here in America, you had some commercials and some films produced, and that kind of created a peak for the dance
And
again.
France
And that,
adapted it too.
Yeah.
France was one of the first companies who did, because I was over there and I danced there one time at a place where they did nothing but just jitterbugging and swinging and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, Leonard, Sweden, in fact, has a dance camp. And is it Herräng? Is that the name of the town? Explain that.
Herräng is something that is difficult to explain in a way, but it was a very small dance camp that we started back in 82, and we had an American teacher the very first year, and then it was a local camp for a handful of years. But when we met Frankie in the later part of the 80s, we asked him to come and teach at the camp. And he came, and when he introduced the American style of the Lindy Hop, the more authentic style, then many people in Sweden liked it, so more and more people started to come, and suddenly people from other countries started to show up. And today, we just finished the camp. It covered July. It's for 4 weeks now. And we had maybe 3,000 people from all over the world coming there doing the Lindy Hop 24 hours a day. It's open all the time.
Goodness.
Wow.
How wonderful.
That's amazing.
Hooray, hooray, hooray.
Well, let's back up and talk a little bit more about the social things that were happening back during these days, the big band era, and some of the famous ballrooms, the Savoy Ballroom, the Apollo Theater. What was it like as far as the interaction between people of different races? There was a lot of segregation, obviously, in America back in those days. But when it came to dancing, how did that play out in the dance floor, Jenny?
Well, there were always dance halls in the different sections. Like, for instance, I was born and raised in Chicago, and we had some wonderful dance, how would you say, studios. And I was dancing, and I had a chance once in a while to go where it was only whites only worked there. And then when I learned how to dance and do a little stuff professionally, I was invited to come to a number of different places and demonstrate. And but But the dancing was like, for instance, in Chicago, we had the wonderful places that you could go to for only blacks, and then the white places were there. And there was not too much. Once in a while, you were allowed in some of the places. And the same thing happened in New York and over. But basically until, I guess right after the war, or during the war, is when most of all of that mess stopped. And you could go any place you wanted to. Because I was a part of the moving down to... from Harlem with the Cotton Club, that, what's her name, Barbara Walters' father bought the Cotton Club and brought it from Harlem down on Fifth Avenue, and this was in 1936, and my manager, whose name was Earl Dancer, who had been Ethel Waters' manager, and brought her to all the wonderful successes that she had. We had just come back from London because of the war, and... they had moved down, and I have a picture of Mrs. Nicholas, the Nicholas brothers, and Duke Ellington and Ivy Anderson greeting Earl and myself to the opening of the Cotton Club down on Broadway. And I want to get on Barbara Walters' show one of these days.
Dawn Hampton, what are your memories about that?
Well, again, see, I was born and raised on a carnival, so my whole life is different from what Jenny. Like, I never went to Europe until I went to Harang, and that was 14, 15 years ago. So, but Jenny's been traveling all over all her life. But even though she said things changed in Harlem, in the places where we worked in the South, there were still places where people danced, and there'd be a rope down the middle, and white people would dance on one side, and black people would dance on the other. Then somehow in the middle of the night, the rope would disappear, and people got so they danced together. It's very interesting, the years of things that changed because of dance. Mm-hmm. Because when black people worked at the Cotton Club, they were not allowed to go there.
No.
They couldn't sit out in the audience.
In the audience, no, they couldn't.
They couldn't sit out in. I think Billie Holiday was one of the ones that changed that, and that was when Frankie and them were working on the show with her, because she told the boss, if they can't sit out here and listen to me, I don't sing.
Yeah.
So that changed that. But the dancing, like he said, how many different countries were represented this year? Do you know?
I think it was 44 to be exact.
That to me is just so awesome that I said if we could get the politicians to learn how to dance, because you got 40 people, 40 different countries represented, and nobody, when they ask you to dance, they don't ask you where you're from. They want to know if you want to dance.
Yeah. Let's take some more phone calls. We do have some people on the line at 543-5869, 1-800-289-5869 with your questions for Dawn Hampton, Jenny Ligon, and Leonard Westerland about the Lindy Hop, about the history of the music and the dance and what it's like now to try to learn this form of swing dance. Dennis is online from downtown. Hi, Dennis. You're on Weekday. Good morning.
Oh, yeah. I got a cute little story. My wife and I are, well, sort of Lindy Hoppers, but she really learned it from her dad, who was quite a dancer, and he was a bombardier during the World War II. He did 2 tours of duty with the 5th Air Force, and between one of the tours, his goal was, at that time, he was only 22 years old, was to dance all the big dance halls throughout the United States. And simply because he was a bombardier, he could hitch rides anywhere in the United States just by hanging out at Air Force bases, because he was a flyer. So he actually got to hit all those ones on the East Coast, clear out to St. Louis. I don't know what he got out. I think he got out to the West Coast, and he was quite a dancer. And she learned it from him, and she still has a great love for that dance from then on. She's got great fond memories of that. So
wow.
Very interesting.
Dennis, thank you very much for the phone call. That's great memories that people have of experiencing that whole time. 543-5869 or 1-800-289-5869. We have on the phone now Hallie Cooperman, who runs the Century Ballroom in on Capitol Hill in Seattle. Hallie, good morning. Are you there, Hallie?
I am.
Oh,
Hello.
Good to hear you this morning. Now, we wanted to talk to you because we're curious to know what is going on with the Century Ballroom. We know that it was bought last year. A new owner took over the building, the Oddfellows Hall, and a number of the arts organizations that have been there over the years had to leave because of increases in rent, and that would include the Velocity Dance Group and Freehold Actors Theater, right?
Yep, that's very true.
So they have moved on. But we were wondering about the Century Ballroom, and we know that it's been a question in front of you as to whether or not you would be able to stay. And so can you tell us what the situation is there?
I can. I guess the best news of the week for everybody is that as of 8/8/08, we signed a 10-year lease to stay in the Century Ballroom, which is it's a big coup, and it's also sort of a bittersweet coup because as we watch, the building will be beautiful, but as we watch the construction happen, we also watch everybody leave, and I think that we have a lot of people and a lot of family who come here, family being all our dance and music family, who come here every night and go dancing, and I think I can't imagine a city without some place for all these people to go, and there just aren't that many assembly spaces anymore, and there's certainly no old ballrooms that do what we do. So I think we got very lucky, and part of the synergy of this building was also having arts organizations in it. So it will be an interesting next 10 years to see who ends up here.
What's happening in the rest of the building? What are the conversions there?
The fourth floor, which used to be mostly smaller arts organizations, though, at one point in time, it was Seattle Mime Theater, it went to Chamber Theater, Real Girls, a lot of things. It was gutted. Beautiful old structure underneath all those offices, but it was gutted to make into offices, is what we've been told, though nobody's up there yet. The Freehold Theater down on the first floor is going to turn into a restaurant. The Running Store on the first floor will be staying and then moving into one of the smaller spaces. And I don't think they have a tenant yet for the main corner space. The Freehold main space, their main theater up on the second floor, has been gutted, and I don't think we have anybody in there yet. Velocity is still going back and forth about whether or not they'll be able to stay. They need for an organization to sort of redo what they do, they need a longer-term lease than I think is on the table right now. So I think that's a question about whether or not they'll get enough time to make it worthwhile to invest the money that they need to into the space. I think that's a really big question for a nonprofit. If you're gonna try to figure out how to make it financially work, and it's a little bit above what can happen, you kind of need to have a security for funding for all things. So for your board, for your constituency. So I think that they're still trying to work something out. So that's hopeful. And for us, we are going to, no matter what happens to Velocity, we are actually taking over their office space. They would be taking over two spaces in the building, really, if they stay, the main space that they've always been in and the Freehold Theater space. So they would still have two main theater spaces. And we are taking over their office and lobby area, so we'll sort of enter in the same way, to expand our restaurant and a lounge. So we're basically making an area where people can come separate from ever going into the ballroom, so there's no cover, there's no nothing, and can also be in the ballroom and leave the ballroom if it's too crowded or too noisy or just want to sit down and have a conversation and eat outside of the main space, which is, it's been a sort of a long-term plan, and so we are actually expanding somewhat to create that.
So you said you signed a 10-year lease. Now, you offer a lot of classes and workshops and dances and other programs there. Is any of that going to change going forward?
Oh, no more dance classes. I think we probably offer about 35 different classes a week right now, and all in series classes, and we probably dance 7 nights a week. We actually have a second space. So I don't think anything will change. This business exists because people love to dance. And I suppose if everybody stopped liking partner dancing, then we would figure out something else. But it seems like this city is so vibrant, both in salsa swing and tango, West Coast swing. These are all sort of the dances that we do and teach, that it's a pretty, any night you walk in here, there's 150 to 400 people wandering around here and there. And that's, as long as, like I said, people keep dancing, we'll keep being here, we hope.
Hallie Kuberman, thanks for talking to us today.
My My pleasure, and thank you for asking about the building. And, we hope for the best for everybody.
Yeah, well, good to hear you're going to be surviving for at least another 10 years. That's Hallie Cooperman, who runs the Century Ballroom on Capitol Hill in Seattle. In the Oddfellows Hall, there was some question about the future of all the tenants in that building since it had been taken over by a new owner, but Hallie at least says the Century Ballroom will be there for 10 more years. Well, let me come back to my guests for a final question about variations in the Lindy. One of our listeners wrote in to say, are there regional variations, for example, in southern parts of the United States or New York or West Coast or even overseas, or does everyone dance the same way? Dawn Hampton?
No, they have what they call West Coast swing. They have East Coast swing. They have Savoy swing. If you swing dance, you can do any of them. But people like to put their name on something. So the West Coast swingers call it West Coast swing, and people call it East Coast swing. It's all swing dancing.
Jenny? Your thoughts on variations of the dance?
I don't know. I haven't. I don't know if I can answer this properly because I had never paid that much attention to it. All I know about it is just doing the doggone dance because it's so bloody good. And I've done it in many times, and I guess I've been doing the West when I was East and vice versa. So whatever they call it, all I am saying is that just carry on, because it's one of the best of the kind of dancing you can do. And if you want to learn it, come here. You really get to know how to do it coming here. This is the place to come.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and Leonard, some thoughts from you on variations.
I mean, it's an improvised dance, as we have mentioned before. That means it has something to do with your personality, the way you dance. So that means it will come out in very different ways. But if we look upon how it looked in Europe in the 40s, 50s, and also, maybe not today, but in the 40s, 50s, then it was a very different style from what you can see in the American movies. So it was more a Scandinavian style or a British style. So the dance can definitely look very, very different in different places. But it kind of works together anyway. You have to adjust a little bit, but you can do it with other people from other places.
That's Leonard Westerland, along with Jenny Lagan and Dawn Hampton, three people who are participating in the Masters of the Lindy Hop program that's going on in Seattle this weekend. Most of it based out of the Century Ballroom on Capitol Hill, but activities happening around the city, including something over the noon hour. Where are you going to be dancing over the noon hour? City Hall?
It's going to be an outdoor thing outside the City Hall, from what I understand.
And they're going to have a free lesson.
Free lesson, so anybody can go and watch and dance. And
today's my birthday.
Happy birthday, Jenny Lagan.
Amen.
Well, it's been great having you all here. Jenny Lagan, Dawn Hampton, and Leonard Westerland, thanks for coming in today.
Bless you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's a minute before 10 o'clock. 94.9 KUOW FM Seattle, KUOW 1340 AM Tumwater Olympia.
What's going to happen when the Gen Xers take over? I'm Ross Reynolds. We'll talk about the coming generational handoff with Lisa Chamberlain, author of Slackonomics. That's on The Conversation at 1 p.m. I hope you can join us.
Here comes Gen X. We're going to be talking about that at 1 o'clock this afternoon. We'd like to hear from you right now. Are you part of Gen X? What is Gen X? Call the Conversations feedback line at 206-221-3663. That's 221-3663. Gen X this afternoon at 1.
Support for KUOW comes from Ficheri Jewelry Art Gallery, offering jewelry as art by more than 45 artists, and antique and vintage jewelry located in downtown Seattle between Pike and Union inside City Center, and on the web at FACEREjewelryart.com.
Singer-songwriter Glenn Campbell. Yeah, remember him? Rhinestone Cowboy? Well, he's still around, and he has a new album out. It's called Meet Glenn Campbell. He's been in the music business for 50 years now, so if you haven't met him yet, you'll get your chance tonight at 8 on KXOT. That's 91.7 FM or KUOW2 on HD radio. 70 degrees, sunny skies over Seattle. We expect a high of 88 this afternoon. I'm Bernard Willett. It's 10 o'clock.